Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest, Dondeena Bradley. And she's here today to share with us her new book, Living Full Circle, Simple Ancient Rituals for Modern Life. Dondeena is an expert in identifying the benefits of holistic health practices and translating them into practical approaches that people can adopt in their lives. She has spent thousands of hours challenging teams to deliver breakthroughs in health and wellness innovations in diverse cultures at a number of Fortune 500 companies. And she has shared her conviction at TEDx Orange Coast in the talk, Let's Create a Society Addicted to Health. Her formal education includes a Doctor of Philosophy in Food Science from The Ohio State University and a Master of Science in Nutrition from Purdue University. So let's welcome to the show, Dondeena Bradley.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. Oh my goodness. I mean, I loved this book. Absolutely enjoyed reading it and learned a lot. And I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Wow. I would say it was the experience that I had as I was in the holistic healing certification course. As you can imagine, I was surrounded by 20, 30 eager individuals to try to take in new ways of healing. And as that was happening, I found myself sketching and trying to find ways to make it more practical into my own life. And that sparked a whole host of conversations with other individuals that were in the course. And it's kind of a part of me and my DNA. And so off we went in just really trying to make these rituals, which to me are timeless, very applicable to anyone at any time, very accessible, very affordable, which was my goal.
Well, I love how the book, the subtitle is Simple Ancient Rituals for Modern Life. And so I'm really curious, how did this become an important part of your journey and subsequently a focus of the book?
That's a great question. And I could answer that from so many different experiences that I've had in my life. I would say just going back to the basics for me, as you can appreciate, being in a corporate role and being maniacally focused on a certain initiative, but yet being exposed to extraordinary amount of problems that seem to persist in society, locally and globally. Whether you want to talk about the obesity incidents or individuals living with diabetes or just what I would say chronic pain. And, unfortunately, as much as there's an investment in these types of just day-to-day, unfortunate experiences that individuals have, people are looking for ways to feel better as opposed to being labeled, I have a chronic disease. And the inspiration really just came from what I started to witness in terms of simple things that people could do that would make an impact in a day, and to feel just a little bit better. And so I've always had that as part of my own passion and mission. I think in terms of any role that I've had, of being for the individual, the human, and I've always kind of pushed back on what I know is important traditional language and a marketing mindset of a target audience or a consumer or even a patient. And so this was just my opportunity to be for the human and in essence try to bring forward those things that affect both, the spirit and the mind and the body.
Yeah, how important is that? And for our listeners who are going, gosh, what does it mean, living full circle? I'd love for you to share that with us.
That's something that emerged in terms of, coming full circle, right? In terms of finding something that you knew would work maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And you neglected and left it behind. So for me, there was just this theme that constantly emerged around, hey, this ritual or this approach to solving a problem seems very simple, but yet we forget about it. And so for so as an example, just growing up in a home where, I talk about this a lot around sitting at the kitchen table and hearing my parents try to find solutions for my grandmother who was living with diabetes and suffered, with her eyesight and an amputated toe, and were, in essence, in a conversation about what dessert can she eat. Angel cake really became kind of the middle of the essence of the conversation. And so here I am, 20, 30 years later. And on one hand, we're more educated, but I don't necessarily see the advance that I would hope, given all individuals rolling up their sleeves and trying to find problems for, what people experience on a day-to-day basis. And so for me, that was living full circle. I started out wanting to find a solution that was better. I spent a lot of time in my career just understanding systems and how to bring solutions forward. And in essence, in some cases, they're just right there, in front of an individual, but they don't even really appreciate or know that that can work. And so I guess that's a long-winded way to say I just feel like there's these cycles of solutions that get left behind, and my hope was to bring things forward that are timeless, but we kind of forget about. But yet when we do them religiously, they tend to have a real impact on our ability to solve a problem that we live with. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's been a consistent thing for me.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And when we look at just, our journeys in particular, a lot of times we do know some of this ancient knowledge. We might have heard about it or know a little bit about this. And so it's nice to have these reminders to go, hey, you could use this to move your life forward.
Right. I think the other thing that's a little bit different about how I approached this book, if you will, was I put it in context of an individual and how they might be on a path in solving a problem. So as an example, if you're not exposed to some of these rituals just in terms of grounding and breath work, or thinking about stretching a little bit differently, or paying attention to your tongue, if you will, and the color change, that feels very foreign versus going to your traditional doctor and thinking about pain relief. And so my intent was to break this down into kind of 10 segments, if you will, that really began with grounding in the breath and ending and spiraling up, I call it, healing from the inside outward. And noticing that's really what happens in nature, right? That's how trees and the ocean and all the things around us spiral in growth. And so I was hoping to break that down into more bite-sized pieces, if you will, and have individuals pay more attention to their own cycle, if you will, and try to hone in on those areas that they may not have thought to pay attention to, that could just be introduced into their daily routines.
Well, since you brought up trees, I'm going to ask my next question here, because your first chapter kind of really dives into grounding, and I'd love for you to share with us why that's important.
Well, grounding connects the body and the mind through breath. I really believe that. I think naturally we take a deep breath when we're overwhelmed, and for me, thinking about grounding and roots, being very rooted, is the beginning of paying attention to the signals in your body when you know you need to take a pause and listen to your breath. So in that kind of framework, I wanted to just talk about breath IQ and scanning breath. And, a simple question is, should I breathe through my mouth or my nose? And while to a lot of individuals who are deeply immersed in yoga and breath work, my finding when I was out, kind of in areas with people who really hadn't been exposed to that, just breaking that down and talking about the breath and connecting the body and mind really does make you feel calm and more grounded. And understanding what grounded means for me as an individual or for a friend who may feel a little bit different, but to be able to talk about that and go to that first when we feel stressed versus maybe in an emotional, overwhelm, or which can lead to drama, as you know. So trees for me is, such a great metaphor in terms of their role and deeply rooted and providing that kind of natural grounding, if you will. And so I wanted to start with that.
I think that's such a great place to start the discussion, because a lot of times, I mean, how disassociated we become from the breath. We get the shallow breathing, we're not taking the full belly breaths. And a lot of times it's really kind of around our anxiety and stress.
Right. And that for me, kind of led into even the other cues. Not only are we not necessarily always listening to our breath, we don't necessarily scan how our body feels, right? Even our joints, and just tending to our body in simple, techniques, knowing where our liver is and feeling that side, that right side of you. If you really pay attention, your liver may feel off, and that's a signal to kind of help us mobilize and grease the wheels, if you will, of what our body needs. And so to your point, for me, grounding allows us to listen better and to pay more attention to all of the parts of us that create us, holistically.
Okay, so in each of your chapters, you have what's called a personal spotlight. What is that? And why don't you share one for us that, kind of stands out for you?
So my intention was to illuminate the individuals that I know are doing their own work in the various fields. And, as I shared, I tried to create a book that kind of dipped a toe into a variety of areas as opposed to an entire book being about breath work or um, other techniques, if you will. And I wanted to honor what I would call individuals who are masters at what they do. I don't pretend to be a master at any of this. It was my intent to translate it into something that allowed people to, you know, maybe feel a little bit better and then be motivated to dive deeper into those areas. And so for me, these spotlights were almost a story about, something that was real and personal to these individuals who decided to make a change in their life. And by making that change, as hard as it may have been at the time, their reflection on it, their testimony, if you will, just were so motivating and inspiring for me. I wanted to, create a space in the book and ultimately in other places that I can talk about it for these, what I would say, warriors of humanity. Gosh, it's hard to pick a favorite. I guess I would talk about, I want to talk about all of them, but if I were to pick one, an individual named Daria, she was someone who I've known for quite a while and encouraged, and she did this course a year in advance before I did. And she does my hair. So we'd see each other every 8 to 10 weeks. And we talk about just the learning of this and translating it into rituals, and just had such a passion for it. So her story, is kind of highlighted twice in terms of looking back a year later. She had an extraordinary struggle with a lot of things in her life that she could not find answers for. And we could spend a whole hour talking about that, but it's a very common theme that keeps coming up is I had this pain. I don't really know where it's originating for, or I have horrible skin and it's really tough to get a handle on it, or I can't sleep. I have, horrible insomnia. And so Daria, actually, this spotlight focuses on how she shifted her morning and how she even shifted the food that she ate, and even seasonally what she would do differently, and just the remarkable results that she had in taking back her health. And there's a little bit of that in all of them. I think if I were to just add one more, Joya Weeks is someone that I met at a leadership weekend who also had, gone through her own vigilant approach to answers with her own body. And what I love about her is she started to really own her own energy and be accountable for the energy that she put out into the world. And every time I would see her, just the consistency that she would have in who she was and owning the energy that she put in and the boundaries that she put around her own approach to life and what she wouldn't allow in, so to speak. And again, that was just another example where that just made a difference in her ability to show up as her best self. So those are two examples. I'd love to talk about all of them, but those are two of that made a real impression on me.
Yeah, I mean, there are many of them throughout your book that I was like, oh my gosh, I so relate to this, or I know people that are dear friends of mine that can relate to this as well. And so it's not something that's so far-fetched. I mean, most people will either have it going on or know somebody that does.
Right. Yeah, I can hear Julia in my ear, talking about you have to stop being a victim of your body, and you really need to kind of take a different approach. Which that chapter on zoning, for me, we hear a lot about energy management. If you dig deeper, you understand chakras in your body and how energy flows through your body. And she just really brought that to life for me in a way that I felt, as I described that to someone who's kind of new to energy management in that context, it started to be more relatable, this whole idea of zoning and kind of decluttering and rezoning, if you will, and thinking about it as boundaries.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because, one of the questions that I have for you too, I mean, your book talks about this and it's very intriguing. And I think a lot of people that know about chakras may know something about this, but a lot of times, we just kind of don't remember. It's like we go throughout our day, we get so busy, we don't remember. And you talk about how our energies will interweave with those that we, come in contact with. And how can we maintain it so that we're not carrying somebody else's baggage with us everywhere we go?
Oh wow, that's something that I have to keep reminding myself, because I can feel the weight of a lot of other individuals' problems, and I constantly have to clear my energy, if you will. Well, here's how I would just kind of level set with that. If you studied the rainbow and Roy G. Biv, for me, that's really the spinning wheels of energy that are in our body. And I think I kind of go through the Roy G. Biv, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And each of those kind of stand for a different location on your body. And so for me, I remember when I started to take the course, and while I had studied energy management before, I had this wonderful bracelet, if you will, that had all those colors of the rainbow. And I would hold on to the red one, and that's down, really in your root chakra. And I would say, I'm steady and I'm grounded. And I would listen to my body and make sure that I really believe that. And I would go through each of those, whether I was in the shower or just taking a quiet moment or on the subway. I would start to really pay attention to each of those zones, if you will. And I would get quiet in those zones. And to answer your question, when I can get quiet, I know what's mine and I know what's not mine. And I feel like I have a lot of empathy for people. And I'm in, my lesson in life has been I tend to take on others' maybe problems or be that empathetic ear, even more sometimes of putting myself last on the list. And so from that perspective, I would constantly scan these, energy zones, and I would make sure I know kind of where my energy starts and where others, you know, the stop and start of that, because I do know we are interwoven networks of energy. We are interconnected. And it's just really important to pay attention to your own energy and know when you need to kind of regroup and reground around those zones.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, because when we think about, clearing the clutter that's in our space, a lot of times people just think about our homes or our work, places like that, not really their energetic space.
Right. And the more better understand kind of your own energy pattern, the more you really can direct your own kind of unique demands, right? The more you can show up and be your best self and have that confidence in that. One of my favorite things to do early on was that good vibe poem, in terms of each sound that those different energy zones have affiliated with them, in terms of oh, ooh, ah, eh. Like I would really try to take the sound and tie it to the color and to the location on my body, to a point that it became intuitive. I built that into my practice. And so I can quickly scan my body and make sure and to know where I am, which allows me to kind of understand if I'm in getting ready to go into a meeting that's really important in terms of how I show up in my professionalism. I need to know kind of where I am on that energy scale, right? Or even, going out for a run, if you will. But anyhow, zoning is to me one of the most critical parts of kind of that journey from grounding to spiraling up. And it obviously leads to being able to kind of shift and transition and kind of build new routines into your daily life.
Yeah, that's so important. And you talk about in your book, my goodness, I mean, you've got so many wonderful things for us to cover here, but you talk about like really spending time on like rejuvenating the body. And you talked about a little bit earlier about, hey, let's look at the liver and how's your liver feeling? Why is that important? Why do we need to be checking in that way?
I think of our body as a container that just does these wonderful, remarkable things every day. And we just think that's going to keep going. And for me, why it's important is to understand how to sustain it in the most efficient, nurturing way. And I know I feel better when I have a sense of where my body's showing up or where it's not, and how do I pause and tend to that. And sometimes I think we just go, go, go and kind of collapse at night, and our feet are doing their thing. Our liver and our whole digestive system is trying to keep up with all of that. Our adrenals and all the cortisol that's being produced, like that's a machine that just is working and working until it stops, right? Or until it starts to kind of go a little off. And so for me, knowing my body, understanding the relationship of some of the different functions of the body, enables me to pay more attention and shift in a way that keeps me from burning out, or just keeps me feeling better in the course of a day.
Yeah, it's so important. And, it's a great reminder that people can do these check ins, with themselves and see where they're at. It's not something that, they can just ignore or only have to go to a doctor to figure out. They can kind of do a personal check in.
Well, right, and also I like to experiment with how I feel in nature and the natural rhythm of the seasons. And so, one of the things I experienced in the course that I took with others is we would do a detox, if you will, of transition from summer to fall or fall to winter. And it would be a 3-day liver rejuvenation, if you will. And that in its own right, preparing, going from winter, where at least where I live would be dark and damp and cold. Your body starts to need a little bit more help in transitioning into that, so to speak. And so it just it started to really help me pay attention, if you will, of what I could do that was more practical, that was simple in effect, to shift versus eating the same thing every day and being in the same routine, which sometimes can be put you in a rut, if you will, if you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah, it's easy to get in these routines that don't really serve us well. And you've kind of talked about, routines in general. Are there new ways that our listeners can start establishing new routines so that, they don't get stuck in that rut and they're identifying them, I think, which is important.
Yeah, I love the chapter talking about kind of owning, right? Noticing what flows. And this concept of electronic prison. Marianne O'Brien is spotlighted, and it's someone who's made me really aware of Wi-Fi and the constant bombardment that we have of just the electronic field that we live in. And I'm not sure who termed that phrase electronic prison, but if you think about that, and how we're wired right now to be connected from a technology perspective, and yet our own energy wants to kind of be connected to each other. But if we're isolated, there is a something to be said for doing just some alignment with the sun setting or the sun rising, or paying attention to just detoxing from all of the bombardment that we have of EMFs. I'm not an expert on EMFs, but I can tell you, one day I was doing a quick run in New York, and I had on my Apple Watch, and this gentleman stopped me, and he's like, "Do you realize you're just bombarding yourself? It's not really helping you." And ordinarily I would just run on by and just kind of wave to this gentleman. He was a younger man, and it was near a hospital, and he had on a kind of some uh, wardrobe pieces that would let me know he's kind of in the medical field. And he was so passionate about it, and it just got me to think about how we sleep with our phones by our bed, and at least put the phone in the drawer, put it on airplane mode. But that was kind of an area that I hadn't really paid attention before. I didn't even really think about that causing brain fog or some other things. And I could feel a difference in my body when I started to think differently about protecting myself against that, so to speak.
Yeah, it's so amazing when we have just something so simple as maybe switching where our phones are that can make such a huge impact in our lives.
Right. Well, establishing different types of structure that kind of enables your natural body to sync, if you will. And hopefully there's some ways to establish new routines with these practices, and think differently about our connection to nature.
So when we have really big, significant life changes that occur, how should we identify those and use those to our benefit?
Oh, that's a great question. I
Just hit you with it, right?
You did. In essence, I feel like I'm living it. I'm living full circle, right? So this idea of starting a new role, a new job. I've taken on a role that's more of a global role. I'm traveling internationally, and I notice what happens when my body's trying to adapt to a new time zone. And I just decided to go down and spend 30 minutes eating by myself and just really having a mindful meal, if you will. I haven't had a lot of sweet sleep as you kind of live into a time zone. And as I sat there, my body was talking to me. And I was just having a lot of gratitude for being able to take that time. But if I weren't practicing that for myself, I would probably be diving into the emails and just go and getting as much done as I can on the work front, versus stepping back and reflecting and taking some time for myself so I can show up and look engaged and radiant, and not as necessarily as drained as sometimes it can be when you're shifting time zones. But it's a great question. I think stress. We talk about the stress busters in our life, right? The change of a job, a new marriage, having a baby. All of these things happen, and they're extraordinary adjustments, and critical for us to step back and listen to our bodies, and pay attention, and try not to get overwhelmed by it, but just do one simple thing, just one thing that can make a difference, and a noticeable difference in helping you feel better. For me, that's been always kind of the cue for me. Well, did that make me feel better? Whoa, like, wow, that was a simple change I could make that paid off for me. And so anyway, as I'm going through significant changes for myself, I feel like I've learned to slow down, as opposed to speed up and try to command and demand it all. I'm finding I'm stepping back, and trying to take it in smaller bites, if you will.
Yeah, that's so important. I really felt that living full circle helped me because I look at, you talked about devices. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I have mine sitting right next to my bed. My sleep has been somewhat horrible. So since then, after, kind of getting into the book, I've actually moved it, and it's helped improve my sleep, which improves everything.
It does. Glad you did that.
Yeah, it's amazing what can happen when you have a good night's sleep, right? So.
Well, and even for me, getting up 15 minutes early, just having that opportunity to have a quiet moment of just being grateful, paying attention to what's kind of where the racing mind goes. And I want to keep my feet in shape so I can run, hopefully for a while, because that's one of the best places I think can integrate. So I pay attention to my joints and my feet and rub oil on them and all that good stuff. But that required me to take just 15 more minutes, or build different structure in my day that would really prompt me to do that. And when I don't do that, I notice that I'm not feeling as great as I do when I do commit to it.
So, where could our listeners connect with you and learn not just about your book, but be part of your community?
Well, I am building a website that's up at Dondeena.com, and I'm certainly available on social media. My intent is to start to blog and write about these things and post these things more regularly, but really putting a spotlight on stories and people. And I want to hear about that. But every 2 weeks, I am starting to start with the 10 that are in kind of this book, in honor of their work. And gosh, since this book has been published, practically all of the individuals that I've highlighted are doing some even more remarkable things. It's really fascinating to watch that. And so, to your point, my hope is just to allow people to connect with each other and witness each other's growth, and take the things that can work in your own life, and when you try them, and hopefully be a source of stories and testimonies, if you will, for people. So I'm really building that. To be really honest with you, this is new to me. I didn't set out to write a book. I set out to translate something for myself, and the people around me just encouraged and motivated me to start to put that together. And I just feel like it's been such a gift to go through that process. And so now I need to figure out what is the best way to unite this community. And so stay tuned. But for now, you can kind of see this start to grow on Dondeena.com.
Well, Dondeena, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, I love talking about this. And so just thank you for enabling that, and appreciate the time that you took to read it. And it means a lot to me.
Well, thank you, Dondeena. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, Living Full Circle. Living Full Circle is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. If you'd like to connect with Dondeena, you can at her website, dondeena.com, for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just what moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Friday and Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.